The scent of ammonia and lemon-scented polish was the smell of his mother's love. For 16-year-old Leo, it was the smell of sacrifice, of her chapped hands and the weary slump of her shoulders when she came home after a 12-hour shift. Sarah cleaned the 50-story glass cathedral known as Finchworth Tower, a place where men in suits sharp enough to cut glass made decisions that rippled across the globe. To them, she was a ghost, a silent functionary who emptied their trash and left their world gleaming. To Leo, she was the universe. And in Leo's universe, everything was numbers. Not the dry, dusty numbers of a textbook, but a living, breathing language. He saw the Fibonacci sequence in the unfurling of a fern in their small apartment window, the fractal geometry in the jagged crack of a pavement slab, the elegant dance of prime numbers in the city's symphony of traffic lights. His mind was a place of chaotic, beautiful equations, a world no one else could see. Especially not at Northgate High, where his teachers saw a quiet, distracted boy who stared out the window, not the mind that was simultaneously calculating the parabolic arc of a bird in flight. Alistair Finch, the man whose name was emblazoned on that tower, was a creature of a different world. He was a man forged in the crucible of old money and ruthless ambition, a former mathematician himself who had traded the beauty of pure logic for the brutal efficiency of the market. He believed in pedigree, in the idea that greatness was a thoroughbred trait, passed down through generations of privilege. He saw the world as a pyramid, and he was perched comfortably at its apex. One Tuesday, Finch was in a particularly foul mood. A rival had poached a top analyst, and the papers were calling his firm as stagnant. He needed a PR win, something to reassert his dominance not just in finance, but in intellect. "I want a competition," he announced to his terrified board. "A mathematics competition. We'll find the next great mind, the next Einstein. We'll call it the Finch Scholar Invitational. We'll invite the best young minds from the most elite private schools. Show the world that Finchworth invests in the future." His sycophantic head of PR, a man named Jennings, lapped it up. "Brilliant, Mr. Finch. A celebration of intellect." Finch's cold eyes scanned the room. A cruel, glinting idea began to form. "And Jennings," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "I want to add a wild card. A social experiment, if you will. Find out the name of the boy whose mother cleans this floor. The night cleaner. Invite him." Jennings blinked. The cleaner's son, sir?" "Yes," Finch hissed. "I want to make a point. Let's put the son of the soil next to the sons of privilege and watch what happens. It will be a lesson in genetics. In breeding. Film it. It'll make for a touching human interest piece when he inevitably fails." The invitation arrived on a Thursday, tucked into a thick, cream-colored envelope with the Finchworth seal embossed in gold. Sarah held it as if it were a bomb. Her Leo, invited to a competition with a $50,000 scholarship prize and a summer internship? It felt like a dream. "They must have heard about your grades, baby," she said, her voice trembling with a hope she hadn't felt in years. Leo looked at the letter. He saw the name Alistair Finch, and he knew. He'd seen the man once, a fleeting glimpse of a silver-haired titan stepping out of a limousine, his face a mask of bored indifference as he walked past Sarah without a glance. Leo understood patterns, and this pattern felt wrong. It felt like a trap. "I don't know, Mom," he said softly. "Don't you? I don't know me, Leo," she insisted, her tired eyes shining. "This is it. This is the chance. The one I've been praying for. You just have to show them how smart you are." The day of the competition was a study in contrasts. Leo stood in the Finchworth Tower's grand atrium, a cavern of marble and glass, wearing his best, slightly too small collared shirt and jeans. Around him, boys with names like Sterling and Prescott milled about in bespoke blazers, their laughter echoing with the easy confidence of those who had never known a door to be closed to them. They looked through Leo as if he were made of the same glass as the walls. He was an anomaly, a glitch in their polished world. Alistair Finch gave the opening address. He spoke of meritocracy and the relentless pursuit of excellence, his words a smooth, practiced veneer over a core of pure cynicism. His eyes swept over the crowd of young faces and landed, for a fraction of a second, on Leo. A flicker of something, amusement, contempt, crossed his face before vanishing. The competition was brutal. The problems were abstract, esoteric, designed to separate the merely brilliant from the truly gifted. The first round was on number theory. Leo felt a sense of calm settle over him. This was his language. The numbers sang to him. While other boys scribbled frantically, crossing out and rewriting, Leo's pen moved in a steady, graceful dance across the page. He didn't just solve the problems, he offered proofs that were more elegant, more concise than the expected answers. He advanced, of course. And then he advanced again. With each round, the whispers grew louder. "Who is that kid? He's from Northgate. A public school. I heard his mom works here." The words were spoken with a kind of horrified fascination, as if he were an exotic animal in a zoo. Finch watched from a glass-walled observation room, his smirk slowly tightening into a thin, hard line. This wasn't going according to plan. The boy wasn't supposed to be competent. He was supposed to be a prop, a feel-good failure. But he wasn't failing. He was excelling. The final round consisted of only 3 contestants, Leo, a boy named Sterling who was a 4th-generation legacy at his Ivy League track school, and a quiet girl named Anjali who was a known prodigy. They were led into a lecture hall. On a massive digital screen at the front was a single, monstrous problem. It wasn't a typical competition question. It was a simplified, but recognizable, variation of one of the most famous unsolved problems in all of computer science and mathematics, the P versus NP problem. The problem, established by the Clay Mathematics Institute as one of its 7 Millennium Prize problems, carried a $1 million prize for its solution. It asks, in essence, if every problem whose solution can be quickly verified by a computer can also be quickly solved by a computer. P represents problems that are easy to solve, while NP represents problems that are easy to check. The entire world of modern cryptography, finance, and logistics was built on the assumption that P does not equal NP, that some problems are fundamentally harder to solve than to verify. Finch had chosen it for its theatricality. It was unsolvable, of course. No one expected them to crack it. The goal was to see who could get the furthest, who could demonstrate the most profound understanding of its complexities. It was the ultimate intellectual Everest. Anjali and Sterling stared at the screen, their faces paling. They began to work, filling whiteboards with known approaches, with complex algorithms and theoretical frameworks. They were trying to climb the mountain. Leo just stood there. He wasn't looking at the problem on the screen. He was looking through it. In his mind, the problem wasn't a wall, it was a door. He saw the intricate, interlocking logic, the assumptions that had been the bedrock of computational theory for half a century. And he saw a flaw. A tiny, almost imperceptible crack in the foundation. It was a leap of intuition, a flash of insight that connected a dozen disparate fields of mathematics in a way no one had ever conceived. It wasn't about finding a faster algorithm. It was about redefining the very nature of the problem. He picked up a marker and walked to a clean whiteboard. He didn't write down long, sprawling equations. He started with a simple, elegant proof, a statement of logic so fundamental it had been overlooked. He was not climbing the mountain, he was showing that the mountain, from a certain perspective, didn't exist at all. In the observation room, Finch was flanked by the 2 judges, renowned mathematics professors he had brought in for legitimacy. They had been watching Sterling's and Anjali's boards with polite interest. Standard approaches, one of them, Professor Albright, murmured. Good command of complexity theory. Then, the other judge, Dr. Lena Petrova, a formidable figure in the world of theoretical physics, pointed a finger at Leo's board. Alistair, what is he doing? Finch squinted. Leo's board was almost empty compared to the others. It held a few lines of symbolic logic, a diagram that looked less like math and more like a piece of abstract art. It looked like nothing. He's given up, Finch said with a dismissive wave. He's hit his ceiling. It's over. But Petrova was already on her feet, her eyes wide. No, she whispered, her voice tight with disbelief. That can't be right. She walked out of the observation room and onto the main floor, Albright and a confused Finch trailing behind her. She stopped a few feet from Leo's board, her gaze fixed on his work. The other contestants had stopped, sensing the shift in the room. The air crackled with a strange energy. Petrova's breath hitched. My God, she said, her voice barely audible. He's not solving the competition problem. He's reframing the entire P versus NP question. Albright's jaw dropped as he followed her logic. He's using a topological framework, applying principles from geometric group theory to a computational problem. It's unheard of. Leo was in his own world. He wrote another line, then another. It was a cascade of logic, each step flowing from the last with irrefutable certainty. He wasn't just providing an answer. He was building a new language, a new way of seeing. And in that language, the answer became self-evident. He wrote the final line on the board P equals NP. And then, underneath it, a short, devastatingly simple proof. Silence. The kind of absolute, profound silence that follows a thunderclap. Sterling dropped his marker. It clattered on the floor, the sound echoing through the hall. Anjali simply stared, her brilliant mind struggling to process the paradigm shift she was witnessing. Finch stood frozen, the blood draining from his face. This was impossible. This was a joke. The cleaner's son? The charity case? He looked at the board, at the elegant, undeniable logic. He, a former mathematician, could see it. It was like looking at the sun. It was true. Petrova turned to Finch, her face a mixture of awe and fury. Alistair, she said, her voice shaking. Do you have any idea what he's just done? This isn't a competition anymore. This is history. The verification process was a whirlwind. Petrova and Albright immediately sequestered Leo, calling in experts from the Clay Mathematics Institute and MIT. They worked for 48 hours straight, fueled by coffee and adrenaline, as the world's greatest minds descended upon Finchworth Tower. They attacked Leo's proof from every conceivable angle, trying to find a flaw, a single logical misstep. There wasn't one. The news broke on a Friday. It didn't just make headlines, it broke the internet. Financial markets shuddered at the implications for cryptography. Tech companies scrambled. But mostly, there was awe. A 16-year-old boy, from a public school in a forgotten part of the city, had solved a problem that had stumped geniuses for generations. He had proven that P does, in fact, equal NP. Alistair Finch was forced to call a press conference. He stood at a podium, the Finchworth logo behind him, looking like a man who had aged a decade in 2 days. The cameras flashed, the reporters shouted questions. He cleared his throat. "We are here today," he began, his voice hoarse, "to recognize an achievement of historic proportions." He spoke of Leo's brilliance, using words like profound and paradigm-shifting. Then, he did something no one expected. He looked directly into the main camera, his mask of corporate invincibility finally cracking. "I also need to make a public apology," he said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "I invited Leo Washington to this competition for cynical reasons. I did it as a cruel, arrogant test to prove a point about privilege and breeding. I believed genius was the domain of the elite. I was wrong. Profoundly, humiliatingly wrong." He looked over to the side of the stage, where Leo stood with his mother. Sarah was holding her son's hand, tears streaming down her face, not of sorrow, but of overwhelming, earth-shattering pride. "Leo's mind," Finch continued, his voice breaking, "has reminded us that the greatest resource on this planet is not capital or influence, but human potential. And it can be found anywhere. In a penthouse, or in the son of a woman who cleans that penthouse. I was blind to that, and I am sorry." The world changed for Leo and Sarah. The $1 million prize from the Clay Institute was just the beginning. Universities from around the world offered him full professorships before he had even finished high school. But through it all, Leo remained unchanged. He was still the quiet boy who saw the world in numbers. One evening, weeks later, he was back in their small apartment, which was now flooded with letters and gifts. He sat by the window, watching the city lights blink in their complex, rhythmic dance. His mother came and sat beside him, placing a cup of tea in his hands. "Are you okay, baby?" she asked, her voice soft. Leo looked at her, at the woman who had scrubbed floors on her hands and knees so that he could have a chance to fly. He saw the infinite, unconditional love in her eyes, an equation more beautiful and more complex than any Millennium Prize problem. "I'm okay, Mom," he said, a small, genuine smile gracing his lips for the first time in a long time. Everything adds up now. He had not just found an answer to a mathematical problem. He had found his own value in a world that had never thought to look for it. He had proven that the most brilliant stars are sometimes hidden, waiting for the right moment to light up the sky. Thank you for watching this story. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us to tell it. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more inspirational stories just like this one. We'll see you in the next video.